Paket wisata gajah yang ditawarkan kepada wisatawan itu seperti memandikan gajah, berjalan bersama dengan gajah. Nah, jadi para turis dapat melihat dan mempelajari bagaimana sifat gajah di dalam hutan.
All the things that we've done in Northern Sumatra have been kind of ecotourism, and it's really nice to see that it's not just foreigners coming in, giving money, going away. Everything's being fed back into the community so they can empower themselves, so they have alternatives to being in the palm oil industry or logging or all of those things which are destroying this habitat because it's beautiful.
Semua masuk tamu-tamuan, lalu CTO, datang tamu-tamuan kamu mau tempat di mana begitu, nggak ada harus di sini, nggak boleh seperti itu. Pemerataan itu bukan semua sama ya kan, tapi semua mendapat sekarang ini. Bagi masyarakat yang nampak jelas sekali keuntungannya, pendidikan bahasa Inggris didanai daripada ya kita sendiri, lembaga kita.
Anggota CU kebanyakan bekerja di ekowisata, dan anggota wisata meminjam uang ke pihak CU untuk memodali modal usaha mereka. Karena begitu pesat pendapatan di ekowisata, mereka mengembalikan uang CU tepat waktu.
Moto kami sekarang ini bersama Ranger, kita menjual hutan tapi tanpa memotong kayu. Kita setiap hari Jumat itu melakukan patroli di perbatasan Taman Nasional dan masyarakat. Kita kerjasama dengan ranger-ranger yang ada di tangkaan ini. Yang kita fokuskan kalau patroli di batas Taman Nasional dan lahan masyarakat itu ada aktivitas ilegal seperti pemasangan jerat satwa.
Kawasan konservasi penting karena dia bukan warisan dari nenek moyang, tetapi pinjaman dari generasi yang akan datang. Pemerintah mempunyai kewajiban untuk menjaga manfaat dan nilai kualitasnya kawasan konservasi untuk kepentingan generasi mendatang. Komitmen pemerintah dalam hal ini Dijen CAIPSDCC adalah membangun role model sehingga keberhasilan tangkaan bisa direplikasi di tempat lain dan ada proses pembelajaran.
Kemitraan sangat tertarik untuk mendukung Tangkahan karena ini model hidup yang bisa kita tampilkan kepada nasional dan internasional. Masyarakat mempunyai kesadaran sendiri. Perubahan dari illegal loggers menjadi penjaga dan pelindung alam itu sangat jarang terjadi dan ternyata bisa dilakukan. Artinya adalah sebetulnya masyarakat jika punya keinginan yang baik untuk memperoleh hasil bukan dari kayu, namun dari wisata alam bisa terjadi.
Keseimbangan adalah kunci untuk mendapatkan harmonisasi, karena harmonisasi kehidupan antara manusia dengan alam sekitarnya adalah jaminan buat keberlanjutan kehidupan di muka bumi.
Baik, halo, selamat pagi, selamat siang, good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, the participants of the CAIPSDCC webinar. So I say selamat pagi, selamat siang, like because we are in different time zones. So hello everyone. I'm Leah Zakia from the CAIPSDCC, the Collaborative Australia-Indonesia Programs on Sustainable Development and Climate Change. And yeah, welcome to the CAIPSDCC webinar today, which will discuss about ecotourism for sustainable economic recovery from the pandemic. And thank you very much for those of you who have registered to our event. We have more than 1,200 registered participants, and then it is more than the capacity of the Zoom account that we have. Our sincere apology for those who can't enter the Zoom room. Hence, we also set up a live stream option via YouTube. And hello all who watch this from YouTube. You can all say hi to each other by writing down your name, your organization, and which city you are from in the chat box so we know where you are coming from. I see here that There are people from various regions in Indonesia, Australia, Nepal. Wow, that's pretty far from here. So hello everyone. Labuan Bajo, good morning semuanya. Bogor, Jambi, and from all, I guess like a lot of people are from universities across Indonesia. Yeah, I think representing all islands, big islands that we have. It's great. So yeah, I'm Lia Zakia here, and then I will be hosting this webinar, and we have this regularly every Thursday each week with different topics each week. And then I just wanted to say a few things about what is CAIPSDCC. It is a collaborative program between Griffith University and Universitas Indonesia that focus on research collaboration, student mobility, capacity building, and high-level dialogue. And this webinar series is part of the capacity building as well as the high-level dialogue, because later in 2 months, we will have a high-level dialogue discussing about climate diplomacy and then also other topics related to low carbon transition. So now I just want to talk about logistics. I'd like to explain some housekeeping rules to make sure that we have an enjoyable session and a meaningful discussion. The participants don't have to fill any attendance list because we will have an attendance report from Zoom. So you can all just focus on the materials. And the presentation materials from the speakers can be downloaded in our Google Drive account, and we will share the link at the end of this webinar. And information about the request for certificates will be shared in the end of the webinar, so stay tuned. So yeah, and then I also would like to introduce the features on Zoom webinar if you haven't familiarized yourself with. So there is a chat box where you can introduce yourself and then communicate with each other or to the panelists. And then also there will be a Q&A section here where you can write down your question, but usually we have so many questions that it is impossible for us with the time limit given to answer all of them. So the participants can read first the questions before you to see whether there's any similar question or the same question as or relevant to your question. You can just like upvote it or like click the thumbs up. So then we can know which one, which questions are the most popular ones. Those are the questions that we're going to answer, or the most relevant questions. And then we are going to do a polling. This is the first time that we're going to do it. So if the participants could see, oh, some of you already responded. So yeah, if you could click on the polling section, you could actually answer the question so that we could know, the result of it. And then we will share the result of the poll later to all of you. So yeah, and then after this, we are going to listen to some of the opening remarks from our distinguished guests. The first one would be from Bapak Rahmatullah, the Dean of Math and Science Faculty, Universitas Indonesia. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Dr. Rahmat. Pak Rahmat, monggo. Yep, great.
Okay, thank you. The Honorable Dr. Frans Teguh, Acting Deputy 2 and Senior Advisor for Sustainable Tourism and Conservation, Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy of Indonesia, and Mr. Daniel Geswin, Chief Executive of the Queensland Tourism Industry Council Australia, Ms. Emma Whittlesey from Griffith Institute for Tourism Australia, and Mr. Ari Suhandi, founder and director of the Indonesian Ecotourism Network, Dr. Duan Biggs from Environmental Future Research Institute, Griffith University, and Mr. Iben Ismarson as a session chair of this webinar. Many thanks to you all for your participation to share insight and knowledge and to have a meaningful discussion with the audience who are coming from different areas in Indonesia, Australia, and other countries. Good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar organized by CAIPSDCC, the Collaborative Australia-Indonesia Program on Sustainable Development and Climate Change. Today's webinar will focus on ecotourism for sustainable economic recovery from the pandemic, which is a series of webinars on sustainable landscape management. Ecotourism can become the global scale solution to solve the conservation issue, specifically in the developing countries such as Indonesia. The concept using tourism as a tool to achieve the conservation management objective is now accepted in various countries, and this is shown in the increasing interest of tourists to visit nature tourism areas in several countries. And in Indonesia, ecotourism is an important component of the economy as well as a significant source of its foreign exchange revenues. And currently, according to the data, ecotourism contributes 35% of Indonesia's entire income from the tourism sector. Increasing number of the nature lover segment is one of the potential national incomes, since Indonesia has unlimited ecotourism sites and attraction from the 54 national parks, more than 100 tourism parks, 500 protected areas from the ocean, coastal, lakes, tropical forests up to mountains. And during the pandemic, tourism is one of the most impacted sectors. Therefore, big efforts need to be addressed to facilitate and attract people or government to boost this sector. Universitas Indonesia and Griffith University Australia should work together, exchanging best practices, learning from each other to solve multi-aspect challenges that we all face today, and trying to provide contribution, but at the same time, we're still not violating the regulation and the pandemic restriction. Ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely hope that you will enjoy today's webinar, and we open for further collaborative works between scientists from University of Indonesia and Griffith University Australia, and other stakeholders from the government, private sectors, academic members, NGOs, and the communities. I hope you find meaningful discussion and inspiration moving forward from this session. Thank you and enjoy the webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Thank you very much, Pak Rahmat, the Dean of Math and Science Department, Faculty, Universitas Indonesia. He has been a big supporter of CAIPSDCC program, so thank you again, Bapak. Next, moving on, we will have an opening remarks from Dr. Emma Whittlesey. Hold on, my cat, sorry. My cat is, so sorry. Yeah, I'm working from home, so yeah. So Dr. Emma Whittlesey from the Griffith Tourism Institute, Griffith University, Australia. And so she is a senior research fellow, and then she will have an important information that perhaps the participants is interested on. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Dr. Emma Whittlesey. Dr. Emma, please.
Yeah, can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we see you. All right.
Great, that's really good. Now there are some slides. Are they able to be put up so I can just go through the slides?
Yes.
So welcome everybody, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to welcome you and provide some opening remarks from the Griffith Institute for Tourism, which is based at Griffith University in Australia. The webinar series provides a great opportunity for us to disseminate knowledge and facilitate discussions to help address some of the key challenges that we face today. If we can just move on to the next slide, that's great. So to tell you a little bit about Griffith Institute for Tourism, which is also known as GIFT for short, GIFT provides innovative solutions to help businesses, destinations and communities understand and plan for a sustainable tourism future. So that is one of our focus areas. And we offer specialised consultancy as well to all levels of government and the tourism industry. We also do a huge amount of research around situations such as this with the COVID-19 pandemic in terms of research and advice to make sure it's timely and relevant when we have rapidly evolving tourism sector. And we also try to give weight, you know, to not just economic issues, but social and environmental impacts, both positive and negative, so we can ensure that successful and sustainable projects are taken into account. So the COVID-19 pandemic is having an unprecedented impact on the global travel and tourism industry, presenting many challenges for our societies and economic systems. But many would argue that it's also given our precious environment and our ecosystems a much deserved break. The disruption presented by COVID-19 does present a huge opportunity for change and transition towards more environmentally sustainable practices and for green economic solutions. Ecotourism therefore presents a solution and an opportunity to work towards a much more just and sustainable economic recovery from the pandemic. If we could just move on to the next slide. This is something for those of you that are interested, we just wanted to share because Griffith Institute for Tourism is running a Tourism Ready for Recovery professional learning course. And this course provides participants with key insights and information. There's videos, there's activities, scenarios and case studies to assist you navigate your way through the crisis and consider your recovery action plan and hopefully emerge more resilient and competitive as borders reopen and restrictions ease. So for those that are interested, you can access the link at the bottom to sign up, and it will help you prepare to be ready for recovery, and people that complete it will also get a certificate of completion. If we could move on to the next slide, which is my final slide, just a very quick overview of the course if any of you are interested. There are 4 modules. The assessment is a short answer and multiple choice questionnaire in each module. And the learning tools include things like presentations and videos, some podcasts, media stories, case studies, and industry reports. Some of it is core information, but others is optional. And as I mentioned before, there is a Tourism Ready for Recovery certificate of completion, which can be earned by completing a short quiz at the end of the course and achieving 50% or more. So that's it from me in terms of a quick welcome and an introduction, and to let you know a bit more about that course if any of you are interested. And I hope today's webinar inspires you all to have your own role in affecting good positive change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emma Whittlesey, for joining us this morning or this afternoon at your place. So, ladies and gentlemen, we bring up this ecotourism topic because it is also part of our goal to advancing research on several aspects related to climate change and sustainable development. And then I guess I think ecotourism can be a big part that play an important role in trying to advance the sustainable landscape management and then also achieve economic livelihood for the communities. So without further ado, I think it's time for us to start the discussion. I would like to introduce our chair for today, which is Mr. Iben Yuzenho, founder and managing director of Sebumi, a startup with a mission to advocate the adoption of sustainable lifestyle among urban people and youth through experiential learning in nature and conservation areas such as National Park, Geopark, with a community-based approach. He is now a social entrepreneur after spending more than 15 years of experience in the corporate sector. He quit it and then decided to focus on this passion. So he is now going to lead this session. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Mr. Iben atau Mas Iben. Silakan Mas Iben. Halo Iben.
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Leah. I haven't been able to start the video. Okay,
yes,
there we go. Thank you, Leah Zakia, our wonderful host, the program coordinator of CAIPSDCC. Selamat pagi for everyone in Indonesia, and good day for you who are in Australia and other parts of the globe, like Nepal, I heard. May peace and health be upon all of us. And welcome again, and thank you for spending the time with us today at this 6th webinar series held by CAIPSDCC, a joint effort between Universitas Indonesia and Griffith University, Australia. It's an honor for me to be invited to chair this session with a very prominent lineup of guests and the speakers who I will introduce to you shortly. For the next 1.5 hours, we will learn along and discuss with them on a very interesting and relevant topic that we are currently facing in this time of pandemic and economic recovery. So I will start with introducing our first distinguished speaker, Dr. Frans Teguh. Dr. Frans is the Acting Deputy 2 of Resource and Institutions, and also the Senior Advisor for Sustainable Tourism and Conservation for the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy, Republic of Indonesia. He received Master of Arts degree in Tourism and Hospitality Management from Bournemouth University, and his doctorate degree in Tourism Studies from Universitas Gadjah Mada in Yogyakarta. He is the founder and chairman of Center for Integrated Sustainable Management Studies on Tourism, Environment, and Social Development. He is also a lecturer for postgraduate program in Universitas Gadjah Mada and Sekolah Tinggi Pariwisata Bandung. He wrote and became editor of several books and publications on tourism. One of the latest is Destination Management and Tourism Ecosystem, which was published in 2018. His extensive experience of almost 3 decades in tourism and sustainable tourism field will be an amazing treasure for our discussion today. I believe so. And then our second distinguished speaker is Mr. Daniel Swin. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Daniel is the CEO for Queensland Tourism Industry Council, the Queensland peak tourism industry body with more than 2,000 regional members. Daniel represents QTIC on various committees and advisory boards, including the Tourism Research Advisory Board, University of Queensland Industry Advisory Board, the Griffith Institute for Tourism Advisory Board, the Bond University Regional Advisory Board, and also the GBR-NPA, I think it's for Great Barrier Reef Marine Protected Areas Tourism Reef Advisory Committee, or TRAC, and the Reef and Rainforest Research Center, RRC. Daniel is an adjunct professor at the University of Queensland Business School. He is the honorary consul of Switzerland for Queensland. Amazing. And then our third speaker is Mr. Ari Sohandi. I will refer him as Pak Ari. He is the executive director of the Indonesian Ecotourism Network, or INDECON, one of the best well-known resources for ecotourism development in Indonesia. He is also the vice chair of Asian Ecotourism Network, or AN, based in Bangkok. And as ecotourism enthusiast, he has been a leader of nature tourism in Indonesia since 1987. Pak Ari established INDECON in 1995, and since then have facilitated numerous development ecotourism destination and work in almost all provinces in Indonesia. In his 2 decades of fieldwork, he has participated in noteworthy ecotourism and community-based tourism development initiatives in various aspects, including destination planning and management, institutional development, business development, and field research. He has also performed as team leader for projects with international organizations, namely UNWTO, UNESCO, Conservation International, the Nature Conservancy, the Asian Development Bank, and many more. For his work, he has been nominated in the CON as the finalist for Tourism for Tomorrow Award in 2016. Pak Ari has also been providing advisory services for Ministry of Tourism for accelerating ecotourism and community-based tourism in Indonesia. Luar biasa sekali ya Pak Arya. We hope to hear from you Pak on some lesson that you drawn from those amazing fieldwork experiences. And our fourth, last but not least speaker is Dr. Juan Biggs. Dr. Juan is a senior research fellow at the Environmental Future Research Institute at Griffith University. He was born in Namibia and grew up there, and in South Africa, Kruger National Park, the famous national park. He completed his PhD at the Center of Excellence for Coral Reef Studies at James Cook University in 2011 on the resilience of coral reef tourism to global change and crisis. After his PhD, Dr. Juan worked for Scientific Services of South African National Parks to develop a tourism research program that support decision-making and management of the trade-off and synergies between conservation and tourism for all the country's national parks. Dr. Juan frequently contributes to international policy discussion on various issues through his work with WWF, the International Institute for Environment and Development, and the IUCN Sustainable Use and Livelihood Specialist Group. He's an enthusiastic naturalist and also bird watcher. So he is also the founder and lead of Resilient Conservation, a group of applied conservation scientists. He's an associate of Birding Eco Tours and had developed and led specialist wildlife tours and expeditions in countries around the world. Interesting. And thank you again, our distinguished speakers that I have introduced earlier, for taking the time to be with all of us today. We have a very diverse combination of expertise, both from policy level, academic, and research point of view, as well as practical on-the-ground field experiences with the community at the forefront of our nature. I hope there will be a cross-pollination of thoughts from all of the speakers and stimulated by also questions from the audience, that we can have a fruitful discussion around how can ecotourism be part of the driving positive force for sustainable landscape management, and how with the communities together, all the multi-sector stakeholders can collaboratively work in finding solutions in this time of economic recovery for us to build back better and sustainably. So before we start, I'd like to reiterate what Leah has mentioned for audience, to write your questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom apps and give vote to your relevant thoughts to pass it on to the panel. We acknowledge that there are many people from around the globe who attend the session, but probably we'll have to apologize that if later, in the interest of time, we might not have enough time to answer all of it. So let us begin. Allow me to set up some skin of our discussion today. In the brief that I learned in previous 2 webinars under the topic of sustainable landscape management, it emphasized the importance of economic recovery, which won't rely on exploitation and unsustainable extraction of natural resources on the landscape, that more or less have put us all in this COVID-19 situation at the first place. And we have experienced that the damage will not be felt only for certain particular parts of the globe, but for all parts of the world. Finally, us as a global citizen bitterly realize that after all, we're on the same boat, and this boat is sinking if we cannot find ways and ideas of how we can utilize wisely the economic value and services of the environment without making it losing the capacity to sustain itself and provide services for human and ecosystem in the long run. Ecotourism concept, which offers benefits for the environment, socially, economically, for the well-being of the people around nature area, has always been considered as one of the form of that solution that we're all looking for. Nonetheless, we are all aware that not only mainstream tourism, but even ecotourism itself is a double-edged sword. It invites the idea that it can save nature, but also may contribute to the even further damage when not managed and carried out properly. So without further ado, we'll hear from the speakers, how can ecotourism be that solution of sustainable economic recovery out from this pandemic? Before going to the first speaker, Dr. Frans, I also would like to remind once again, panelists, that your time is only 7 minutes for presenting your initial thoughts. So we have more time for discussion interactively and flowing with questions and answers from the audience. Please apologize that if after 5 minutes, I will interject to inform your remaining time. So coming to Dr. Frans, as someone who has been working in designing and advising government for policy creation, ecotourism in the past has mostly seen as a niche part of the total tourism industry cake. Hopefully through your presentation, Dr. Frans, you can enlighten us about the idea if ecotourism can be used as a robust economic recovery source for the communities and our nation. Can it be a true sustainable alternative for communities whom livelihood depends on exploiting natural resources? And also we'd love to hear from you the policy and the strategy of the Indonesian government to develop ecotourism. What are the policy, regulation, and guidelines in place at national level, and how it can be cascaded down up to the local government level, even until the smallest cell, which is desa or village level. Please, Dr. Frans, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for the host. Can I share my presentation, please? Hello? Hello?
Yes, Pak.
Hello?
Okay. Hold on. Yeah. Can you share it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have my presentation on the screen? Hello?
Not yet.
Not yet. Sorry. It's okay now? Or may the host or the secretariat can share the presentation from your side?
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's problem with. Okay, waiting for the presentation on the screen. I would like to ask the secretariat to have the presentation on the screen. So thank you. Thank you all, the audience and the participants of this webinar. I'm really happy to share with you as the commitment from the government. So I think this topic will be beneficial for us to look through the ecotourism and sustainable tourism development in the new normal. So my presentation will touch with the sustainable issues and also link with the ecotourism. The government of Indonesia and also the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy seriously address and committed to respond the pandemic situation currently. So there's a range of the mitigation plan on the ground that we have undertaken so far. So there's 3 stages that we produce and will be as a directive for us. The response situation is about the response to the emergency, and the second one is the recovery program, and also we come up with the normalization. So believe that it is a kind of the response for the government to make sure the social safety net for the people, workers, and also some stimulus package. And then again, we put people first to handle and to mitigate the situation. This is the first point that I would like to highlight all the strong commitment from the government, especially from the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy. The second one is about the preparation for the destination with the new normal policy. So linking with the health protocol endorsed by the Ministry of Health with the Decree 2020. So we would like to make sure the condition of the health, safety, and security, cleanliness cleanliness as well. For the public places, facilities including market, shopping mall, station, terminal, port, airport, or even the worship place, and also some any related to tourism and economic creative sectors, hotel, homestay, restaurants, transportation, tourist attraction as well. And I think it's really connected with the ecotourism sites across the nation in Indonesia, what I meant. And also some facilities, spa and event or MICE business. So this is all a range of the business that we are going to make sure the implementation of the health protocol that really refer to the cleanliness, health, and safety measurements. In line with this, I think I would like to highlight also the program of sustainable tourism in Indonesia. So considering the global situation and also the national challenge as well, so we then compose the main program for sustainable tourism that link with the sustainable tourism destination, sustainable tourism observatories, sustainable tourism certification. I think it's really important to make sure the quality of the resources as well as the tourism ecosystem, ecotourism sites as well, including national park or village, and sustainable tourism industries, so more green, more sustainable, and last but not least about the sustainable tourism marketing and management. So we're building the program for the sustainable notion. There's some policies support, including regulation on the ground that we have already produced and endorsed. So since Tourism Act number 1029, this is the main reference for the government in tourism sector. And then we come down with the National Development Plan, some guidelines in covering green homestay, the eco guide standard, development of park and garden, and also the ministry decrees on the guideline for sustainable tourism destination, including ecotourism, and also waste management in marine tourism destination, because it's very important to tackle the waste issues in this country. This is the and also the government of Indonesia put the priority to look to the potential destination and tourist sites with this award and certification as well. So as you know that Indonesia has national parks and tourism natural parks for the country, and it's really a big potential for us. So in line with this, I make sure that for the ecotourism, we would like to put on our priority to make sure the responsible travel, promoting conservation values as well, preservation for the nature, environment, and also connect for the livelihood of the local people. But still, there is some challenge, some obstacles that we would like to mitigate and to reduce the gap in order to create more ecotourism product or more sustainable tourism product in the one side. But then again, we are facing now with the new travel and tourism behaviors, the different or the change, the transformation of the visitors' behavior, consumers' behavior that we would like to tackle down. And it is again the momentum for the development of ecotourism in this country is really strategic for us.
Dr. Frans, I'm so sorry, just to remind you that your time remaining is only 2 minutes more. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is some strategies that I would like to highlight. We are concerned with the quality tourism, access and connectivity, cleanliness, health and safety, destination reputation, human capital. I think it's very important for the country. to build and to encourage the more competitive and professional champion and maestro for tourism in Indonesia, as well as product development, industry governance, destination management, collaborative management as well, and also put the priority for the marketing and responsible tourism program. So this is also important to highlight that the ecotourism for this country is really potential, but then again, we would like to catch up with the future tourism trends, traveling locally, distancing, natural tourism, and as well as the micro program. So I think this is the challenge that I would like to close my presentation. The challenge for the challenge and opportunity of ecotourism developing the post-pandemic is still about the visitors management. So come up with do's and don'ts, more interpretation, price strategy for the premium attraction and premium destination in this country, convergence values, combination between the conservation values, cultural values, and also ethic values, so then we can up with a high quality premium attraction and value for money. So this is also the momentum for us to replanning eco-development product and destination in this country, enforcing resilience and local wisdom. So engage the community as a people-centered tourism and the community livelihood. So then the development for the rural tourism, Desa Wisata, for example, is also a part of our pipeline and program on the ground, just to make sure the collaborative management inclusive with the small, medium enterprise. But then again, we need more prototyping, modeling for the ecotourism program and destination, co-creation with the stakeholders across sectors, especially with the Ministry of Environment, and co-initiative together with the NGOs and also community as well. And then again, we still put the priority for the protocol implementation in terms of the cleanliness, health, hygiene, safety, and security, as well as environment component. So I think that's all that I would like to share, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frans. It's relieving to know that there is a comprehensive plan for tourism to be rebuilt after the pandemic, and also knowing that there are policy and guidelines in place to support ecotourism. And this is a positive momentum, but as you mentioned, a lot of challenges and a lot of homework to be done in order to rebuild that sustainably. Thank you. We will probably later on elaborate more on that, but let me let me take us through to the second speaker, which is Mr. Daniel Swin. As someone who's at the peak with sight of the overall landscape of the industry and access, even influence to many tourism stakeholders, Mr. Daniel, will you illuminate us a bit on the market demand for ecotourism compared to laser-based tourism, or if I can use the term mainstream or mass tourism? Could laser-based tourism be eco-friendly? Or is there a chance for the mass mainstream tourism to fully apply sustainable principles, as actually it's also highlighted by Dr. Frans earlier in his speech? That would be lovely to hear some examples of ecotourism sites in Australia that we can learn from, both the successful one and the ones who face a lot of challenges as well. I would like to welcome Mr. Daniel to give your keynote speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great to be speaking to all of you here from Australia. And Dr. Frans has covered a lot of turf and really covered most of the issues that I want to talk about. So it's a very good combination, I hope. Can I start by just making a few observations about the general situation? We have had the greatest disruption that our industry could ever have imagined. You know, our industry around the world has been growing for decades strongly, with a few ups and downs, but growing very strongly. This current COVID situation is the greatest disruption anybody could have imagined, and effectively meant tourism came to a complete standstill. What that means, I believe, is that a recovery and the post-COVID situation will be fundamentally different to what we had before. The time of stoppage means consumers are different. They will emerge from this differently with different expectations, and the industry has to respond and prepare itself differently to how we ever did. And I mean, I'm sure you can see this already in Indonesia, but you can also see it around the world. And if I can share, I said I wouldn't, but I'll share the screen if I can, and it won't let me because I'm disabled. Leah, if it's possible, I'll share the screen. If not, it doesn't matter. But some of the research that we're getting now,
you can share it now, Daniel.
Okay. Right, I just have to find it. Some of the research that we can find, and I refer to the top part of the screen here. The 5 themes that the research attention to is that many people have coming out of this situation looking for positivity. This is a tourism-focused research piece here in Australia. And the top theme is that people look for positive things. They want to feel good, and they want to feel good about when they travel, when they consume experiences. So that's a fundamental emphasis on that we will see in the future. The second theme below there is a shift to using our time more sensibly. So make the most of the precious time that we have. So have better experiences, have more emotional connection when we take time out for tourism. The third theme, the top in the middle there, is that we are very focused on local communities. Now that can mean 2 things. We don't travel, and we won't be traveling internationally for a while, but even when we start traveling again, more people will look at the community rather than just the facility they may be staying at. They're looking at that bigger picture of tourism within a community. That's a very, very important observation, I think. Then back to the bottom, the 4th theme, that we are very, very safety focused. And Dr. Frans has already talked about that. So no tourism operator for the foreseeable future will be able to ignore the expectation of travelers to feel safe, and service providers have to demonstrate to the visitors or those thinking of traveling that they're ready to present a safe environment. And then the 5th one, we will be more focused on value. People want to get the most out of the dollars or the currency they spend, and be more rewarded with experiences. So, I mean, these are generic themes. I accept that, and they may not be in the same importance everywhere, but they are indicative of, I think, how the consumer world has changed. I just wanted to say that over the top. And if I unshare the screen now, Leah, if we can unshare, stop share, here we go. If I can translate this now into this ecotourism environment, I think it puts the spotlight very firmly on ecotourism and the opportunities that ecotourism present. We can argue, and we have argued and debated what the definition of ecotourism is. And I've already seen a few questions in the question and answer box. And at the end of the day, it's one part of a spectrum of experiences and practices in our industry. Ecotourism as a notion, I think, should be protected somewhere and kept for those businesses that are really adhering to the highest standard of sustainability in a natural and a community sense. So we have to really protect the term a little bit, I think. But we also have to value the fact that those high standard ecotourism businesses have influenced the entire spectrum of leisure tourism. So over the years, over the last 10, 20 years, the expectations of consumers to have sustainable products offered to them that are almost like ecotourism, but not quite at that standard, that expectation is very high. Nobody in tourism will be able to remain competitive into the future if they do not adhere to some sustainability principles. That is something that we have to drive. That is also part of the role that ecotourism and ecotourism operator and ecotourism organizations have to, in a sense, bring the rest of the industry along. And what's important about this also is to observe that a product in any destination may be very eco-friendly, but if everything around that product, if the transport system, if the accommodation system, if the hospitality system is not sustainable, then the destination will suffer and the ecotourism product will be tarnished and not be able to showcase its credentials if the entire tourism product that the visitor consumes is not in any way, shape or form sustainable. So I think we have to be very conscious of that, and we have to bring the whole tourism industry along. Again, this COVID crisis has raised many discussions, and you see it in the European press, you see it in the Australian press. In fact, I've seen headlines that said things like, is this the end of tourism? Is now that people realize how potentially damaging tourism can be, have they all decided, no, we don't want this anymore? So we have a responsibility as tourism operators and as an industry to demonstrate to the world and to the consumers that tourism can be sustainable, and ecotourism is the leading light in this, and we have to build our competitiveness on that. Now, in Australia, as in Indonesia, we have some operators that are very good, and you asked me even some examples. We have a little island not far from where I'm sitting here in Brisbane. It's about an hour and a half flight away on a little plane. It's a tiny little island called Lady Elliot Island. It was used many years ago as a source for fertilizer ingredients and completely denuded. Every tree was cut down on it to get to the soil. And tourism operator took over the leased it off the government, and has over the last 15, 20 years revegetated the island, built a small resort, and has gradually over the last 10 years replaced the generators for the resort with solar panels, with solar power, has instigated a water recycling system, and is now providing a high quality tourism experience, not super luxury, but high quality, and is booked out. This particular property is completely booked out because it is recognized as a highly sustainable destination with a coral reef around it, and the natural opportunities, has revegetated out of the resources that the tourism operation generator, has revegetated the entire island. It's a primary example of how small-scale tourism operator in the mainstream industry can really make it work if they look at the whole picture. But we have also others who drive the sustainability agenda in more mainstream type of circumstances. We had a presentation only a few weeks ago on one of the webinars like this one. A hotel operator runs a city hotel, if you like, in a regional town called Rockhampton, further north from here. And it's not the kind of facility where you would expect an entrepreneur who built this hotel to be focused on sustainability issues. But this particular operator and investor decided that even a business hotel like that needed to do more. And he completely under his own energy looked at every aspect of sustainability in his modern hotel, the energy use, the water use, and the waste production. And they have made enormous efforts over the last year to reduce the use of plastic, the soaps, all these materials, and the energy use and water use. And in a very unlikely environment, has done everything possible to highlight the credentials of tourism as a sustainable industry.
Mr. Daniel, sorry to interject here. Your time is up. Actually, it's more because it's been a very interesting opening remarks. We will come back to your points again, I think. And it's as an ecotourism practitioner, actually, it's very relieving to hear from someone like you that ecotourism is basically the way to go, the way forward for tourism. And also that you also mentioned that sustainably will be the new normal, basically. So thank you for that note. We will discuss more later, but I would like to welcome first again the third speaker, Pak Ari Sohandi from Indecon. We have heard that the policy is there, the appetite is huge, and there is actually economic potential is also real for this ecotourism as the way forward for giving the light for tourism industry in general. So maybe we would like to hear more from Pak Ari Suhandi, as also someone who is working also not only at the policy level, but also on the ground level about what are the innovations or how can we use the momentum of this new normal to develop ecotourism. So when we bounce back, when we're back on track, I mean, in the new normal way, that we can actually explore and prepare ourselves to be able to exploit the future opportunities lying ahead of us. So please, Pak Ari Suhandi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iben. Good morning, all. Good morning, Indonesia. Good afternoon, Australia. And thank you very much for CAIPSDCC to invite me to. This is very honorable for me to speak. And can I share my screen from my side? Still disabled?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Leah. It's well, it's I'm the practitioner. As I mentioned, I'm the definitions. Indecon is actually started in 1995. This is 25 years now. So it's in that time we are following all the International Ecotourism Society principles, the definitions, which is there been correction actually in 2015 and put it on the interpretations. I citate this is from the Global Ecotourism Network, but before on the ground, if you see the principle, this is what the principle we use since 1996. So actually we working really hard. It might be, it's a bit different if you compare with Australia. It's ecotourism Australia is really focused on nature-based. In here, based on our characteristic, it's actually we agree among the stakeholder in during the times that the principle of community involvement and educations it's really important for Indonesia. So if you look, this is still what we try, and Indecon try to demonstrate actually Tangkahan, the movie that you saw it before, is actually is one of the first our project in 1999 when we turned from the people from illegal loggers become the ecotourism. And Tangkahan now is still as a role model. It's still very good, still since already 20 years. And the money running around there is around close to the 11 billion rupees yearly. But so I will coming back to that. So COVID, we learn from COVID is quite a lot actually, and COVID is remind us that the tourism greatly affected by the external factors. In tourism, we call it an external factor when the tourism sector itself is cannot do anything. It's like infections. This is right now. It's a COVID-19. The climate change. I put it in bold there. In my opinion, climate change is one of the biggest challenges even in the world. Is beside the COVID itself. And I know I've been 30 years playing in this field. This is the first tourism hit it globally. That's why a lot of attentions. I agree with the previous speakers that mentioned it might be the sustainably is the new normals after the COVID. But I want to remind about the climate change. I put it that very strong. I think that is the biggest challenge, especially for Indonesia. You see the pictures on the right side on the downs. You see that is 2 days ago in Singapore. We don't know who's next. And Indonesian is a lot of potential, but in the same time, it's also a lot of challenge. Climate change will be bringing the natural disaster, social and political conflict is also one of the aspects later on. So COVID-19 is also forcing us to not to ignore the high standard of services, which is in tourism is actually already there. but sometimes we just ignore it. And because we just economic driven, you know, so that's bringing more people, and then you neglect the standard itself. So this is bring it back, except using the marks. It might be in ecotourism, like social distancing is bringing. We're talking about the carrying capacity. We're talking about limited number in one time in a one area. So it's already related with that, the social distancing. And we did it. We also demonstrate the community-based. They can also implement the carrying capacity. We prove it that it's happened. That can be happen on the ground. COVID-19 is also remind us to be wise in managing natural and cultural resources. As Iben mentioned it, that the tourism is double-edged sword, which is if you not manage well, that it will be also bringing a negative impact. So we see in the last 5 years, 6 years, the over-tourism is everywhere. So the economic driven is required. In Indonesia, in the last 5 years, we always talking about numbers. You know, it's now I'm really happy. Frans mentioning. Thank you, Frans, and all the Ministry of Tourism. We are coming back to the quality. This is what we actually been many years sounding to the players. That's actually we should go back there. And COVID-19 is also remind us the importance of sustainable destination management. This is the key. In my point of view, the key is in the destination management. And how to make it happen? Put it investment on the people. Put it investment to changing the minds of the people, and put it investment to being a good, it's not only facilities. Right now, it's also talking about the new destination in Indonesia. We always mindset is the premium one is talking about the premium facilities. Premium is a lot of meaning actually. For me, orangutan is a premium. The Komodo is premium. The guarantee to see the animal, the wild animal in the wild is really premium. And it getting more difficult to see it. It's actually an opportunity in a business. So on the other hand, COVID is also remind us on the mitigation of risks. This is something that a lot need to be working on the ground level, because a lot of players finally realized that they cannot only have depend on the tourism itself. So what is an opportunity? I think this is what we found. Again, there is an opportunity, but it's really depend on us how to manage it. Indonesians, namely, I mean, it's a huge potential. You can mention it everywhere, amazing. We have everything, but sometimes because we are too rich, the responsible of the player is less. So it's a tour operator, for instance. If one of the great area get a problem, they just move it to the tour, just for the business. But this is the time, the momentum that we quote unquote telling to all players in tourism to realize that we should be hand in hand with the conservations. Otherwise, you can lose the assets, because tourism needs the quality of natural resources. On the other hand, is tourism can also helping in the financial mechanism to support the conservation effort. See, that's a two way that you can see. So we have a lot of things because the nature isn't there. I can pass it then. I want to bring you down a bit to the ground. If you look, this is one national park.
To remind you,
yes, please. Yep. Thank you very much. Yes, the Tanjung Puting National Park. You see the number is 25,000 2019, and until last March, on the 18th of March, that's only 1,000 1,100. This is the estimate. What I wrote it, that is more than 60 billion just for the attractions area. because that, you multiply it with 3.5 million rupiah per one package. That's average, you know. There can be more even. So the numbers in there is showing how big the potential. You know, this is showing that the one species, the mawas, the orangutans, give you money. The economic driven to the area is huge. This is one of the best community base. The other national park is in Rinjani, which is this is actually we work in here in 2000 as well. It's the same time with the Tangkahan. So in the time we're working only 400 people a year, but here now you see the number is about 17,000. You calculate it's about 3.4 million rupiahs per package average. So it's about 49 just only for trekking outside of others. They are in Lombok. So the impact is huge. It's really huge in terms of economy. The Wairabo in Flores is this is very interesting. We are about 6 years working with them. This is thanks. This is the winners of the ISTA that's mentioned by Frans. That's in 2018, and this community just in 2005 when we started, it's only 191 visitors. We manage well. If you see the profits where they to go, it's also we assisted to use it sustainably. They are, when we contact them, they are still happy because they are not 100% rely on the tourism, but also with their own product. So they're still okay until right now. They still survive.
Okay.
So the preparation for adaptation, what we did is you can download it in our website, the adaptation. I'm not calling more on the new normal on the ground, a bit confused what it's this. We are using the terms of adaptation to the new normal itself. So it's this is one of the what we did. We also done this, Frans, I need to report to you. This is ongoing still, but until yesterday, this is fresh from the oven. We have 229 survey for respondents. This is talking about impact to the tourism worker and their survivals. This is a very nice. On the other hand, we are also helping on the ground since last month. In last March, we already alert our network to move it, to stop thinking about tourism when it's impacting globally. So this is Rupa Duta in the East Java. It's already started very good. So we link each other, we help each other, strengthen the network, and we're also helping the distribution of face masks. This is something what we've done right now. So you can see in our downloaded in our website. So again, is this a time to change? All depend on us. Change our mindsets, change our behaviors, and manage our natural resources sustainably. Thank you very much, Bang Iben, and all participants to listen. Hope it's
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pari. It's glad to see that some things are like really successful in the past, and also now that there are some works prepared and also being done, carried out for embracing the future. But I think we'd like to elaborate more later on some of the strategies and focus that we need to really focus on to accelerate the adaptation of this new normal situation, I think. So last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, I would like to welcome our fourth speaker, Dr. Juan Biggs. As someone who is in the field of practice, but also academic, how all these ideas that has been presented by the previous three speakers are connected to the concept of environmental economics. What could we learn from it to understand how could tourism-dependent system pursue economic recovery while simultaneously building resilience for both conservation and the livelihood of the communities? How do we prevent market failure both at macro and micro level from environmental economic standpoint? The stage is yours, Dr. Juan.
Thank you, Eben. I'm just trying to work out how to share my presentation here. I think this will work. Is that working? Can you see it?
Yes.
Wonderful. Right, so it's thank you for the opportunity to talk. I've been to Indonesia many times, visited many islands, Nusa Tenggara, North Maluku's, Sulawesi, and so I'm excited to be part of this very important discussion today. As was mentioned earlier, I am originally from Namibia and South Africa, where these sorts of animals that that you can see here, lions, leopards, rhinos, and elephants, are the key tourist attractions. But it's not only these big animals, it is also smaller things like this ground hornbill, and I was involved in the development of many community-based tourism projects, and quite a few of them focused on birds and other attractions such as that, not only on the big mammals. And these are very important as additional activities in Indonesia. Certainly that's one of the key attractions in many places where there isn't the large and attractive and iconic wildlife. Now, we've heard earlier today about the benefits of tourism, and like Indonesia, in Africa, it's a really important industry, contributing around $200 billion per annum, so 8% of the economy of Africa. And it's and protected areas, these are conservation areas, generate about a quarter of that. So conservation related tourism, nature-based tourism, depending on the definition we choose to use, one could call that ecotourism, supports over 16 million jobs in Africa. In Indonesia, the data I've got suggests around 16 billion, 8% of GDP, and 10 million jobs. So this is a tremendous impact and a tremendous contribution to the economy and to society. Tourism, as was mentioned by Ari and some of the earlier speakers, is also critical to actually support conservation, both directly and indirectly. In many parts of Africa, the direct revenue from tourism supports the actual conservation costs, the costs of maintaining fences, of engaging with communities. In South African national parks, over 80% of their revenue comes directly from tourism. It's also indirectly. Society wants to continue to support the preservation and the conservation of these areas because of the tourism revenue. But it's not only terrestrial areas and forests and wildlife. Tourism is also very important in the marine sector. And I did my PhD on the resilience of the coral reef tourism sector in Australia and in Thailand, where I got these images. Now, as we've heard today from Daniel and others, and as we're feeling, the COVID-19 crisis has really hit tourism hard. It's been unprecedented, certainly since World War II. It's led to many job losses, severe impacts on livelihoods, and severe impacts on funding to actually support related activities. So, for example, those nature-based tourism destinations I was referring to earlier, it's had a radical impact on the amount of resources available for conservation. This, as was mentioned earlier, is also an opportunity for us to actually rebuild tourism following this pandemic in a more resilient way, which raises the question, what is a resilient ecotourism sector? So I define this as a sector which can maintain and grow its contribution to the economy and livelihoods, as well as to environmental conservation. And this is also the definition I formulated and used in my PhD work. So which factors influence this? Financial capital, obviously very important. The more money you have access to, the more likely you are to be able to be resilient and withstand shocks. Human and social capital, also very important, and that's been emphasized as well. The greater your capacity, the more likely you are to be resilient. But a very important one as well that my research has found, as well as other research that I don't think receives enough emphasis, is cultural values. And what do I mean by that? So if I call cultural values, consider them broadly lifestyle values. And so what we see is that individuals who see working in ecotourism and spending time in nature and sharing that experience with others as part of their identity and part of their value and part of what's important to them are more likely to be more resilient. They're more likely to persist through difficult times because it's important to their values and identity compared to other people who are less focused on that. And also, importantly, they're more likely to contribute to conservation. And this is something that doesn't receive enough attention, and it's something that we can emphasize more in the recovery. So how should we then
Sorry,
now go
Dr.
about...
Juan, interject a little bit. You have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'm close to finish, so that's good. How do we build resilience as we rebuild after COVID-19? And I think there's a lot of research which shows that it's not only the financial benefits that motivates people, it's recognition, it's pride. And we can do a lot more, especially in lower income parts of the world, like Africa, like Indonesia, to actually recognize what people are doing and make them feel proud for what they're doing. And there's some questions in the polls around that. And actually, let them see that what they've chosen to do in their lives and part of what they value is something the world celebrates and rewards. Also, we need to look at other forms of income beyond just tourism. This crisis has shown us how important this is. These could be things like payments for ecosystem services and offsets. And also something that's really exciting that's taken off now during this pandemic is the idea of universal basic income. It's been around for a while, but it's really taking off. And for example, Spain has effectively introduced it at a national level. So in my mind, what we need to do is communities such as this one, pictured here in Northwest Namibia, they're part of a conservancy. They're really suffering at the moment. There's absolutely no tourism coming in. They should also be receiving some form of universal basic income because they're helping things, animals, wildlife habitats that are important to the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Juan, right on time. And I think it's also interesting to somehow, I think it's connected, your remarks on how to actually link the financial capital, the human and social capital with the cultural values. Yeah, I think it's all linked with the discussion that the previous 3 speakers had already presented. But before we move forward to discussion, I think Leah will let us know the result of the poll that made at the beginning of the session. Please, Leah.
Hi, Ben. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all the speakers. So all the participants, or most of the participants, have filled in the poll, have conducted the poll. Thank you very much. So we are going to reveal the result. So yeah, we will share the result. Okay. So anyone can see the result there in the screen? Can you see it, Iban?
Yes, I can see it.
All right, okay. So these questions were from Dr. Duan Biggs. So I would read it. So should people around the world contribute to support communities in lower income countries like Indonesia who help protect critical habitats such as forests and coral reefs as part of their ecotourism activities? 98% say yes. There are 2% of participants say no. And then the next question is, if yes, how should this be structured? 47% say that it needs an additional tax added to the cost of visiting as a tourist. And then 39% stated that a basic income offered to these communities, even if there is no tourism. And then 12% say other, but Zoom platform didn't allow us to ask your writing down your questions. What are the other? Actually we need to, you to specify that, but unfortunately we cannot do that through Zoom. And then the next question is, how should individuals and communities who have conserved wildlife, such as orangutans and their habitats as part of their ecotourism activities, be better recognized and celebrated for their efforts by the international community? 56% said that need to be featured and supported in social media. 34% said that they need to be given prizes and awards, and 10% specified others. So that's the result of the poll. So maybe Iban and the other speakers could also discuss about these findings.
Yes, I think it's a very interesting result of the poll, and I think it's a very wonderful and great questions from Dr. Juan. It's very related, I think, to how we're going to unfold the second part of this discussion. I would like to actually build upon these findings around communities and how we can actually support them, because most of the time we see that they're at the forefront of these ecotourism activities, as well as they will decide actually will the activities, the landscape management will be sustainable, or actually on the other way around, even though they're part of the bigger ecosystem. But I think that's the main questions. Dr. Juan has mentioned that actually Dr. Frans has mentioned that a lot of guidelines support policy from the national level until the local level. But I think we also would like to shed some light on the implementation of it, how we can actually make the policy work to support this sustainable management of ecotourism with the community-based approach. And also, if we talk about Dr. Juan notes on the financial capital and human social capital, how we can actually bring this together, because sometimes the financial capital, as we know, it's talking about return, and in terms of return, we want it fast, but building a human social capital takes more time. What are the strategies actually for us to be able to, to bridge this gap between policy and implementation, as well as how can we balance the financial and human social capital so that we can actually have the ideal ecotourism that can actually support the future of tourism, which is actually sustainable as the new normal in tourism. So I would like to invite all the speakers actually to give some of your thoughts on this, because I think this is also being asked by Sandy Leo, which actually has 16 thumbs up, that he talked about what are the design strategies to anticipate that and keep the local communities still survive, especially amidst the pandemic. They're mostly are usually the one that is actually affected actually by this economic situation that is derived from COVID. So please, anyone, maybe we can start from Dr. Frans Teguh, or anyone that can actually would like to take the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pak Iban. Very happy to get the response and also finding from poll, and also I learned from my college presentation cross ideas, and I believe that is really important to see the complexity of implementation of this kind of approach. So what I mean is from the political point of view or policy point of view, yes, we committed and we believe that it's not easy to have a cross-sectors sustainable management system for this country like us, because all the authority is not in a single power, but we have something like a coordination process. So I think this is also a big challenge for the large country like Indonesia, because we have a specific regional autonomy, and also every sectors, they have their own commitment as well. So that is the point. The second one is I would like to reiterate the importance of replanning, because planning eco-development, more sustainable development is also a streamlining, not only for the sectors in tourism, but also covering or embracing all sectors. So that is require the public awareness stakeholders commitment for all sectors and also the stakeholders. So I think one point that I would like to propose in this forum is the importance to have some modeling because it can be a kind of best practice so we can learn and cascading for all the countries. So I think like Ari mentioned, and I believe that Ari already have done a lot of initiative in the local level, like in Tangkahan or in Jani, for example, and some places in Papua or in Celebes Island, as well as in Kalimantan. So I think we should have to call all the stakeholders, and then we can have something prototyping and modeling, so then we can have a community-based ecotourism, for example. So that is a kind of endorsement that I think is really important to go further with the engagement to the universities or in the national level, or maybe also with the international communities, like from, for example, perhaps potential collaboration with the Griffith University, for example, and also University of Indonesia. So that's the point. The second, I would like to also underpin how the commitment of the government, especially the tourism and creative economy policies, to push the more quality than quantity, more values than volume. But then again, more tourism and better tourism. But then again, the government will manage wisely to combine the approach for mass tourism, alternative tourism, because some places here in Indonesia is popular for mass tourism. So that is another part. But then again, we have to anticipate the commitment for the more quality, more high quality, and more beneficiaries for the community. So that is also a kind of the management for tourism in this country. But then come down to the regional government and also in the every single destination management, including national park, for example. So that is a kind of approach with the governance innovation. But I believe that for the strategy in ecotourism, we concern with the visitors management, destination management, including interpretation that Pak Ari also mentioned about this, how important to have the quality of value. And also the second one is the measurements for cleanliness, health, safety, and environment, because it's very important for this country. And last but not least is community engagement, linked with the resilience of the local people, local knowledge, because I do appreciate with the initiative from the local level now, the communities, they have their own knowledge to mitigate the pandemic, the COVID situation. It is really important to capitalize this social capital as a part of tourist model for ecotourism and sustainable tourism. Then again, it's also important to embrace that sustainable tourism is a process, is a journey. So we learn time by time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Frans. I think it's a very enlightening points that you mentioned. And hopefully, since you say it's a journey, before we reach the end of our journey, the nature and the sustainability are still there and well maintained, ya, Pak. Because I think we're keeping up. The nature is keeping up with the way we actually behave and also approach the way we approach our nature. So, but I really appreciate you're mentioning about, you know, governance, innovation on coordination, how to tackle politics, and also we're talking about remodeling and also finding the right models, because I think, as you mentioned, Pak, Indonesia is very unique. Community-based ecotourism in Indonesia is very unique, like maybe none others, even compared to in Africa. Maybe Dr. Juan can shed some light, but it's quite different actually, because I've seen also some national parks in China. Totally, there are no one around the national park, but in Indonesia we see people everywhere surrounding the national park. So more quality over quantity as well that you mentioned. Thank you, Dr. Frans. Anyone from the panel would like to build more on that? And then also we are talking, my initial question about strategy and building the gap between the financial and human capital. I think I would like to hear some of your thoughts, distinguished panelists.
Eben, is yes. Daniel here. If I can just raise one point that it was briefly mentioned by somebody, but one aspect that hasn't been discussed much is the level of skills and the expertise that's applied. That's from operators who are the investors or the managers, if you like, but also the staff. You know, ultimately, we can talk about theories and governments can have plans and strategies and intentions, but if the people who have to deliver these things and implement it, from construction to experience, to tour guides, to drivers, to hospitality staff, if they do not understand what we're trying to achieve and what sustainability, for instance, means, we'll fail. You know, it will remain a theory. So the importance of focusing on skill development and expertise development, or capacity building, as we call it here now, is very, very important and is often forgotten. Even if you have your manager understanding about it, if the 500 staff in a resort have no idea what sustainability means, you will fail.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. To add on that, I think it's a very important note about bridging the gap. Please, Pari, and also after that, probably Dr. Juan. Yes.
Mr. Daniel, thank you very much. I think I totally agree with you. Is talking about modeling. We've been demonstrating since maybe many years. Like actually, there is a lot of good sample in Indonesia. Let's say I'm talking about how that the tourism support for conservation. That's what I mentioned before. We can see the financial mechanism, a lot of NGOs, a lot of experts working to link to that. And in Raja Ampat, I think you can see that is a huge and good effort. When I started 2003 planning in Raja Ampat, that is, we're not talking about the community base in the beginning. We just bring the community base after the 2009. So, but because a lot of investment, as Daniel mentioned, there's investors coming in, and they are who are really see the opportunity on that. And but the sustainability, if we believe this is part of the new normals after COVID for tourism, is actually been trying work at the ground levels. And the BLU, Badan Layanan Umum, is a mechanism. The challenge in Indonesia, actually, the money that I mentioned is a tax levy gathered from the tourism. It's not directly been used. Cannot, because the system in Indonesia goes to the central government, and they get a different way to get back to the conservation area. And the mechanisms in BLU, what do you call it in English? Badan Layanan Umum is the mechanism that some of the money gathered from tourism can be used directly to respond to situations on the ground. It's actually been tried and happened, which is need more, France, it's need more that been acknowledged and then try again and replicate it. I think it's one, even though the system is there, because it's a lot of effort, it's more than 2-3 years to set up that mechanism. And I've been also I think the most important again and again is destination management. And in my point of view is tourism is complex, and collaborative management is maybe one of the solutions, even though it's not easy. The pentahelix stakeholders it should be involved as a board of the area. In the first 2000, as I remember, is one project which already starting talking about the collaborative management for conservation area. But and following, I mentioned directly, it's like in Philippines in the same time is also doing it. But it's another good things I found in the Philippines. They give even models to the kabupaten level, to district level, to manage one of the national park. It's a Senpul National Park in Puerto Princesa. If you look, there is a board of a collaborative management who make a certain of standard the development, but the implementation is really on the business. I mean, depend on, but they following all the rules in there. So it might be one of the should be done it in Indonesia. And the modeling of collaborative management, we've done it in Rinjani National Park, done very well. There's a 15 organization involved, all the government, etc. New policy coming in is destroyed everything. So this is a lesson to learn that we should be learned, I think. In the development of the products, I think we should learn from Australia. I believe Australia is one of the best using the technology. I still dreaming to have the conservation area, the ecotourism, big, huge interpretation of all the visitors for the visitors to learn, to educate, but it's not a small one. It's just put it the panels, but this is something more interactive, using all our sense, you know. And I think this is a time, Frans, it might be can use in the super priority one, which is I really hope to see that. And so during the low season, then people can go there. And I suggested in the low season, we should give a time for nature to rest. And during the high season, they can we optimizing the benefit from it. Because in this case, actually for tourism, nature is actually give free itself to be used by the people through tourism. I think that's my thoughts, Pa Iben.
Thank you for adding some very great meat into the discussion, Pa Ari. I think it's I agree with you that it is very important to actually learn from the best practices, the world-class practices, such as the one in Australia, and also how we can actually apply it, but of course without losing the identity and the uniqueness of the local context that Indonesia as a country is having, right? So any thoughts on that, Dr. Juan Biggs? You've been also to Africa, and then how do you see this gap, and how do we bridge it to find a model that is actually workable at the ground level?
I think the points made by all the earlier speakers is good and very relevant. I think what we need to acknowledge is as we come out of this, we can't go back to business as usual. And I think it was Frans mentioned modeling, and what we're trying to do in the initiative I'm running in Namibia is do some participatory modeling to really understand how the community, how the commercial tourism sector, the government differently understand the challenges and the options going forward. And what that often reveals, and what it's revealing for us in Namibia, and my experience from Indonesia suggests it probably will be similar. Also from Latin America, South America, I've worked there. There's similar challenges. Is that there's some quite deep differences in understanding of how the system should work, and what's appropriate, and what should be done, and sometimes what the desired objective is in terms of which future we want to aim to. And I think those sorts of participatory tools that would feed into collaborative management are very important, because we do need to have some of the difficult conversations that in many instances we have been avoiding, which is around people have different expectations, for example, on how they should engage with wildlife. Some people want to touch wildlife, other people don't want to touch wildlife. You know, we need to actually have those discussions and have them in a constructive way. And I think participatory modeling can help us do that, and also help, if set up correctly and facilitated, well, it can help bring out some very difficult issues. I know my colleagues in Indonesia complain about, you know, the government bureaucracy, and it's hard to manage through. It's the same in Namibia, it's the same in many countries, but having a way of actually discussing that meaningfully and trying to find constructive ways forward is very valuable. So that's my 2 cents. I unfortunately do need to run to another meeting very shortly.
Okay,
but
thank you. Thank you, Dr. John.
Thank you again for the opportunity. It's been a great discussion to be part of.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think we hopefully the other panelists can stay at least until 12:30, as I mentioned by Leah, the host. But feel free if you have any other meeting, Dr. John Biggs. But I think it's interesting now to know, and then I think we have been like focusing our talks on about finding the right model that is workable. But I think during this pandemic, we also need like it's more like a middle to long-term strategy that or action that we need to undertake. But I see some questions on the panel, I think from Rio Ronaldo, about if we talk about short-term actions, what are the 3 things that we need to focus on? Because I think we also need to take immediate steps to actually cover this situation of COVID, while on this in parallel also building up the path toward a more sustainable new normal in the future. If I may ask, what would be the 3 things that we need to focus on? I know that Daniel also mentioned about human capability building, but what would be the other actionable steps that we can undertake in an immediate time frame? Thank you. Maybe Pak Ari or Dr. Frans,
Yes,
or Daniel.
Thank you, Pak Iben. I think, as I mentioned before, there's something that we set up the strategy in the short term, medium, and long term. So I think that is the strategy that we set up, and we can also start with the low hanging fruits. I think it's also important to then to measure the level of performance that we have already done so far. Then again, I would like to embrace that the first strategy is how then destination management, including visitors management, should put on the ground and to be implemented in every individual business or entities. So I think this is very important. The notion that we need the management, we need the planning, we need the execution, and also the monitoring and quality assurance. So then the value for money is very important for the ecotourism side or sustainable tourism destination side. It's very, very important about that. So during the pandemic, we learned a lot about the hygiene, safety, health, and security. That is the big, nice problem, I think. It's not only the challenge, but nice problem for Indonesia, because looking at the level of the competitiveness of the country worldwide, even before the pandemic, so our level of this pillar in terms of the safety and security is very low. So I think this is also give us the time for the reflection, to rebound, to repair, and also to revitalize our destination and our ecotourism sites, to put the component of cleanliness no waste management, health, hygiene, safety, security as well. Like something like a commitment to have a reputation and the public trust for destination is very important. So again, the community involvement, including the capacity for the people, local people, is important to deal with. So again, I think in the priority of our landscape of tourism nationwide, we have a very big potential in the ecotourism side. But then again, still we should have to manage by having something like a platform, a very basic platform. We should have to maintain the authenticity, the uniqueness, the locality, the point of difference. So I think these 4 items I can conclude as a DNA of tourism or DNA of the ecotourism that should be maintained. So then we can also demonstrate the values, the conservation values is very high values that really can embrace the total experience for the visitors. So I think again, this is really important to put on the ground. Why do we conserve our resources? So because when the more we conserve, the more prosperous. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Frans. If I may, I would like to also bring, yeah, please, Pak Ari.
I was going to add one element. We're having the same kind of discussions here in Australia, in Queensland. One element, in addition to, not to replace anybody else's, but one additional element is to make sure that the resources, the investment that governments make in all countries, they invest in infrastructure, they invest in all kinds of programs. We have to make sure that those public and government investments line up with economic opportunities, community opportunities. We have to make sure there's a real dialogue going on. So if a government, local government or national government builds roads or marine infrastructure or national park expansion and facilities, we have to make sure that complements and enhances what private opportunities might exist and community opportunities. Everyone's resources are limited, so we have to make sure they line up and support each other.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Daniel. That's a very interesting and important note that you made. I think that's about how we actually aligning and bridging the gap, right, between the policy and the execution level on the ground, where actually strategy and community can actually having this connection, which is actually workable on the ground through a direct dialogue, which is actually, honestly speaking, sometimes we cannot see it often actually happening on the ground level. Yeah, thank you. And any addition from Pak Ari or Dr. Juan, if you're still around?
I think what mentioned by Mr. Daniel is a conclusion. It's totally, I agree. That's really good. It's really good. Yeah. I'm totally agree with that.
Yeah, it's in a stand-up comedy world, it's a punchline. Yeah, I think that's right. That's a very interesting point, and we would like to see it more, I believe. Right. But I would like to bring. I know that Leah briefed me that this is a high-level dialogues. We talk about strategy, modeling, alignment. But if I may, in the time left, I would like just to bring it more practical on the ground level. I'm looking at some question here. I'm sorry, I don't have the time to scroll everything, but I would like to bring some more practical issues on the ground, which is actually very related with conservation, like new normal protocol. I think it's from GoPro, but it's not the real name. New normal protocol due to COVID-19 is producing a new challenges with waste management. For example, so many use masks, chemical disposal, sanitizer bottles, and many new dangerous waste that we don't talk about and educate society about the new normal impacts on garbage and waste. I'm worrying that it will contaminate our pristine island. How do we actually tackle this in a practical way? Distinguished speakers, please.
Well, it's really important issues, even though I mentioned in several meetings before, is actually it's put in our concern as well. It's beyond of the policy itself, the public policy, what has been made it right now. It's all the protocol, etc. One is protocol, it should be communicate with the industries for sure, because it's not only from the health part of point, but it's the business itself should be met in a middle. On the other hand, it's also the concerns of the B3s, the waste they made it. In our adaptations level, the small book that we released to all communities is actually we touch them. One, the issue is using the waters, because I believe is what we predicted is plastic waste will be more. This is it should be handling. I think it's also good. It's not only protocol that's showing up to build trust of the visitors of the clients, but this kind of things that need to be addressed by the governments. It's kind of like beyond that, beyond of the protocol itself, the impacts, how you manage your garbage in the destination, and how you manage the B3 garbage, it's mass and etc. Because in the hospital they have a system on that and they have a protocols, but not in the airport or in destinations level. It should be
in the mountain or the sea.
Or in the mountains, yes. We in our community that we work with, we mention it already to have the special garbage on that, and then discuss with the puskesmas in the dinas and how to deal with it. Because usually we bringing the idea small but daily maintenance of the small incinerators, something like that, if you are far away from the facilities of the big incinerators. So yes, those one. The second one issue is about the waters in the small island, because you can use more water if you use the hand. It's a lot of people. That's also something that need to be addressed, the issue. That's based on the characteristic on the ground, Pak Iben.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ari. Dr. Frans and Mr. Daniel, any thoughts on this practical things that we still see a lot in destination, especially in Indonesia? I myself, Subumi, is doing a tour operator as well in mountains, and then we do conduct like zero waste journey type of activities while we're visiting mountains. We see that even mountains like Rinjani, which is well known to the world, but still there are still some trash issues that is actually there and really persist. So any thoughts on how we can actually, on a very practical basis, that we talk about conservation a lot, but we cannot like hinder one single plastic to pollute our mountain and our sea?
Yeah, look, I think you need local champions, you know, people like me or academics can go and talk, you know, and people listen a little bit, but what we all need, same here, we need local operators who become champions for this, you know, who are best practice, and they have to be talking to their peers, maybe through industry and government, industry organizations and government organizations, but it's those actual operators who convince the others. And if a successful, sustainable operator can say to his peers or her peers, look, I'm not only doing the right thing for the environment, but my product has become more valuable, I do better business, I save costs, then the others will follow suit, not from us preaching at them. So you need those local champions.
Thank you, Daniel. Dr. Frans, last response for this before.
Just short comment. Yeah, we need, I think, as I mentioned, that the reflection, retrospection is very important during this pandemic. So we need not only the protocol for this pandemic, We need protocol for our life, for the future, sustainable future. So I think it's really important, and we need the participation of the all stakeholders. So the governments really open about all the initiative, and I think this is also connected with the governance innovation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Frans. So I think the time is running out. So I would like to invite all panelists to give your closing remarks around how we can actually, build upon what we've been discussed about sustainable ecotourism in the future. Please, guest speakers. We can start from Pak Ari maybe, and Dr. Frans, and then we will close with Mr. Daniel.
Well, it's I think thank you very much for this opportunity. All is good, inspiring. We need to hand in hand and all stakeholders to make a same perception, changing our mindset, how to manage the tourism for sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Dr. Frans?
Yes, thank you, Pak Ivan. Thanks for all the insight and discussion. I would like to close with some statement. Virtual is a new reality. Local is a new global. Resilience is the essence of the sustainability. Sustainability is a journey. So we should have to keep forward people-centered tourism, domestic sustainability, and tourism to be more equilibrium. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Frans. And finally, Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, even somebody said earlier in the COVID crisis, it feels like Mother Earth has sent us all to our rooms to think about what we've done, like a punishment, if you like. And there's a bit of truth in that. And I think the world is thinking about what we've done. And I think ecotourism and sustainable tourism has a great opportunity and a great responsibility to be used as a vehicle for education, for changing the mindset, changing the thinking, and changing the world, really, not just ecotourism, but leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel. Dr. Juan is already left, I believe, if you're still here, because I cannot check. Okay, so thank you so much, all guest speakers. It's been a very valuable and insightful discussion, especially also for me and hopefully for all the audience. But time is our constraint. I cannot conclude all the important talks that we've discussed. All you need to do is just to actually go through it again, and then find every single things that every single treasures from the panelists. But I believe as a practitioner in the field of ecotourism, I think it's time to change. It's time to act, and hopefully, there's a thin line of light at the end of the tunnel. As Dr. Frans said, that it's a journey, but I do still have a strong hope and belief that we will be able to be in a better position than where we are now. So I want to give once more a big thank you for our great panelists, Dr. Frans Teguh, Mr. Daniel Schwinn, Pak Ari Sohandi, Dr. Juan Bix. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your expertise. It's been a great brainstorming and valuable insight and fruitful discussion from all of you. Audiences, thanks also for your patience to be with us till the end of the session and all the questions you have raised that enrich it. I will give the floor back to Leah, our host for today.
Okay, thank you very much, Iban. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for all the speakers and then also the chair for today. I think it went well. So, for those of you who asked about the poll, we have 520 respondents. So, that was good. We will share the result of the polls through email for those of you who has responded. And then, oh my God, the cat, yeah. hold on. So yeah, and then some of the participants asked me to like show the cat, like he's too crazy right now. So yeah, and then we have this webinar regularly each week on Thursdays. So for next week, we're going to organize a webinar with a focus on community engagement to support sustainable landscape management. So we will also have distinguished speakers that can share their experiences and knowledge to all the participants, and then we will have a great discussion. So thank you very much again for all the speakers, and then we have Pak Yatna, and then to share some closing remarks, perhaps, Pak?
Okay, thank you, Leah. Thank you all speakers and also moderator, Pak Iban, Pak Daniels, can I say Pak, Pak Daniels, Pak Frans and Pak Ari, my colleagues, and Pak Frans. So thank you. I just listened to you half of the way because I was in the webinar with the USAID in Bangkok. So it's a virtual again. But I have a glimpse of the discussion, and one of those are very important is that the ICER, our institute, has what you call the basic income lab. So I think Pak Duan Big is already mentioned that what we need to have during the pandemic. So we are working with the Ministry of Finance that how do we get this during the pandemic out to the community, especially who develop the tourism. And of course, during the pandemic, it's really the one that really big hit from this pandemic. So anyway, so thank you very much again. And also the Dean, Pak Rahmat Tulloh, for the, I understand that he is opening this webinar. And also to the Griffith Universities, Professor Kathleen, and who also Professor Rahmat Pitular, and many other that in the CAIPSDCC. So hopefully the next week it will be related to community again. So it's also possibly will be related also to tourism and economic development. So Leah, thank you very much again. It's a very success with the 500 more the participant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Yatna. Yes, we do have more than 500 participants in Zoom because that's our maximum capacity. But we also have more than 200 people joining via YouTube live stream. And the YouTube live stream one can be accessed. Oh, I think my connection is it's not stable. I hope everyone can listen to me. Is anyone can listen to me now?
Yes, Leah, you're doing great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because like the laptop freeze, like the screen freeze.
Only
so
the
yeah,
screen. Only the screen, but the voice is perfect.
Okay, great. So thank you all for the participants who are joining until the end. I know you are asking about the certificates as well. After this, Handika will share a link to the a form, Google form, which you need to fill in to be able to request the certificates. And then also for the materials can be downloaded in our Google Drive account. The link you can get it by visiting our Facebook account. The Facebook account page is the Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources. That's where Pak Yatna is. So Pak Yatna is the director of Institute for Sustainable Resource and Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources. And then, yes, so we will only put a deadline for the request of the certificates. So we put like 10 minutes from now. So if please Handika can share the link, and then also share the screen about the information, that would be great. So yeah, so I guess that's it. So again, thank you very much for Pak Rohmat, Pak Yatna, Pak Frans from the ministry, Pak Ari, Pak Daniel Geswin. We can call Pak Daniel now with Pak. Yeah, it's Indonesian calling for Mr. So
I'm honored.
Yeah.
Honored.
Yeah, that's how we call it.
Looking forward to visit Brisbane very soon, Pak Daniel, to the island that you mentioned.
Make sure you come and visit. Make sure you come and visit me.
I will.
Yeah, I have visited Brisbane a few times from this CAIPSDCC project, and it's great. We can learn a lot from them. And I guess Pak Daniel also should visit Indonesia and then visit all of these ecotourism destinations, so that we can learn from each other. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is the end of our webinar today. Thank you very much for all your participation. If you have any questions related to this webinar, you could send an email that was sent through your email, you know, the confirmation form. And then about their certificates, I guess Hendika is now trying to share. Yeah, and then also will be shared as well in the Facebook page of the Institute for Sustainable Earth and Resources or the Griffith Asia Institute. So thank you very much again. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Ya, terima kasih Bapak Ibu. Thank you.
Mari Pak Frans,
Pak Yatna, sehat-sehat ya.
Thank you everyone.
Oke Pak,
Bye.
nanti saya kontak buat
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Daniel. Thank you very much.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Daniel.
Nice to meet you.
Hendika, we cannot see your screen yet.
Pak Rohmat, terima kasih Pak Dekan.
Ya. Berikutnya.
Pak Dekan, terima kasih. Lia, terima kasih. Saya izin keluar.
Iya, terima kasih Pak. Terima kasih banyak.
Pak Yatna, sehat-sehat.
Terima kasih Pak Ari.
Terima kasih partisipan, peserta semuanya. Thank you so much. You stay until the end. Hendika?
Is it visible now?
No, still black. Pak Rohmat, terima kasih.